Hello, this is Nathan, better known as CrazyhermitDM, and this is my podcast, The Hermit's Homebrew. Joining me today is Jim Wampler from Mud Puppy Games as we talk about the post-apocalypse and TTRPGs. Today we're sitting down with Jim Wampler, the architect, and the post-apocalypse Mutant Crawl Classics from Goodman Games to find out how a kid from the early days of TSR, tabletop RPGs, ended up shaping the stories we're all trying to survive even today. We're here to talk to him. And Jim, what's the first moment that you realized that this community, the tabletop gaming or just the wargaming type community, is like your passion?
That's a really good question. Because I have a younger brother by 2 years who was a war gamer when we were, junior high school age. He had Panzer Blitz or Squad Leader or something, and I was never into those games. So for me, it was when I went to college at initially at the University of Kentucky in 1979, and a bunch of upperclassmen who had been playing since the little brown books swept me up, and I started playing D&D, and that was it. I was a gamer from that point forward.
Was there any kind of part of the late 70s, early 80s kind of gaming scene that still shows up in your work even today?
Oh, absolutely. I would have to really think hard and write you a paper for all of it, but mainly it's the sort of you when you started in those days, the hobby attracted a do-it-yourself mentality because A, there wasn't that much stuff to buy in terms of like published adventures and stuff, and B, we were all, broke teenagers.
Yeah.
Even in college, I didn't have any money, and if I did, it was going for beer or something important. So I started with more Judges Guild adventure modules, and I don't know if that's because I'm a creative person, and just everybody around me was, or we were attracted first, or I don't know which is the horse and which is the cart.
Oh.
But I never, to this day, I personally, this is just me personally, no offense to anyone who's not like this. I'm not a big fan of settings and gazetteers because I've already got a lifetime of stuff I've read that to pick and cherry pick and choose from,
Yeah.
which is all MCC was. MCC was my Valentine to both Game World, which I imprinted on right away in those early late 70s days, and D&D, and also Dungeon Crawl Classics itself, which was how I got back in the hobby in many ways because I was ready. You know how you periodically go through those phases of life, like you're gonna
Yeah.
get married. I did that, and I had come back to hobby about 15 years ago or so, and I was shopping, system shopping, because at that time I think it was fourth edition or 3.5, the last days of 3.5, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to play that. So I was shopping around and stumbled across Dungeon Crawl Classics, and it was like meeting your first girlfriend all over again. I loved Dungeon Crawl Classics so much I wanted to go out and evangelize the system, which I hadn't felt like since 1979 in D&D.
How do you get from like Dungeon Crawl Classics to Mutant Crawl Classics then? Like, because I mean, it is its sibling, and I mean, there you can tell that they're siblings just because it shares a lot of the like more than half the mechanics. But I mean, it is a different game system at the same time.
Well, it is Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's the exact same game engine, and it was designed and intended to be that way. The second game I first imprinted on Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and the very second RPG was Gam World for me, the old
Mm-hmm.
first edition white box by Jim Ward and Jake Jaquette. And I ran, and we would all take a system and run it. So I ran some D&D in the old days, but my main campaign was Gamma World. My brother ran AD&D, and our friend Henry ran Boot Hill, and so it was the to this day my preference in gaming are the first three games I imprinted on, and they were in order: Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Gamma World, and then Champions, which is why I have a superhero game that I can't quite put the finishing touches on, but I've written one.
Yeah, and then I was gonna say like when I was kind of researching for this, like the only other two before like Mutant Crawls was like Gamma World, like you said in '78, and then there's a kind of Metamorphosis Alpha in '76. But I think Gamma World kind of took more off than Alpha did.
Metamorphosis Alpha is, I mean, for those who don't know in the listening office, is the immediate predecessor written by the same author. Both systems were created by Jim Ward, who I later went on to become friends with, and I even published the fourth edition of Metamorphosis Alpha. So they're different setting, but same idea, same mechanics. But there have
Yeah.
been, I mean, this is my bread and butter. There's a zillion post-apocalyptic games, and even however long it's been, 2012 or 13 years ago when I got the idea for MCC, I wasn't the only person because it was an easy idea.
Hmm.
Let's do a post-apocalyptic version of Dungeon Crawl Classics, and there were at least three of us. Read Filippo, who does Umerica. He was one of them. He immediately came out with that we know each other. He came out with that zine Under a Broken Moon, and then spun it up into the Umerica system. And there was a big group. I can't remember what they called themselves, but they were on the old Google Plus page. They had something they were working on, and everybody. When DCC hit, I was tight with James Caprio, who's now passed, and I knew another guy whose name is Scott something. I can't think of it, and we all. Everybody just wanted to jump in and do versions of the same thing. So Scott had like Transylvania Adventures. It was going to be Gothic Horror DCC. James Caprio did something called Tales of the Fallen Empire, and some of some some of those guys self-published. And I went to Joe and showed him what I had, and got a deal to do it through Goodman Games.
And then did Wood Goodman's games come or say in return or whatever when you guys kind of showed them what you guys have come up with so far?
Uh, Joe bit, and we signed a deal, and I was responsible for the whole line at the initial start. Like, I don't know, this all the stuff that was in the Kickstarter, the main and core rule
Hmm.
book, with some help and some additional writers, of course, and the first spat of adventures. I laid all that out and did springboards for the adventures I couldn't write. There was only so much of me to go around. I'm not a particularly swift writer
No,
like Michael Curtis. Michael Curtis is prolific. He can crank it out. I'm not so gifted.
I'm exactly the same way. It's probably why I'm still writing a campaign setting after 2 years, and I'm only about three-fourths of the way through, and of organizing a 40-gallon tote of Arneson size type notes into all one cohesive thought myself.
Oh, you have been listening to Tim's Curmudgeon and Cellar, haven't you? You know the
Yeah.
history.
Oh yeah. I've really researched it within the last couple years because I just wanted to like deep dive and kind of, especially the 50th anniversary. Like I wanted to understand this game survived this long, and I'm doing this podcast. I'm trying to now reach out to the community and showcase, people that have, been in TSR's past or D&D's past and now D&D's future and all that, and show it's like we're all under one big community, even though we're all little tents. But I wanted to understand the history of where it came because it's quite interesting, especially the back and forth between Gygax and Arneson and just the craziness that got.
Well, then I can't you can't do any better, and I'm sure you've already read them, than to recommend anything written by John Peterson.
Yeah, I actually have his
Plague at
book.
the World and those other books.
Yeah, I have them up in my shelf in my living room. Actually, I've read that, and I liked him better. His like what he's done a little bit more than Ben Riggs, but and Ben Riggs was all right. It's just I liked John Peterson's more. I think I like his writing style, and
Well, what you may be reacting to, I mean, Perfect Response for Bed Riggs, I have all his books too, but what John Peterson brings to it is a scholastic and journalistic bent where there are citations, and he is not expressing his opinions. He's doing the journalist thing of just presenting the facts and letting you decide, who was right, even though that's an impossible thing. Nobody's all right and all wrong.
no, no, and I think that's something that's fairly missed in at least today's society of like it's all gray. It's no black and white anymore by any means. It never was, but
I'm really proud of Tim because Tim occasionally gets asked about Dave Arneson from viewer comments on his Curmudgeon in the Cellar, and Tim is very even-handed with him, even though they did not get along at all.
no, and that's I've heard that from multiple sources. Even the horse's mouth of he did not get along with him. They kind of butted heads. I think they're. I'm not sure what exactly was there because I'm not wasn't there, but I assume it was just they're two stubborn, very creative people, and sometimes that just does not clash or doesn't mesh.
Yeah, we shouldn't probably talk about it. It's not my story to tell, even
Yeah.
though I feel like I know it because I'm buddies with Tim.
What part of like Mutant Crawl Classics though came straight from like the heart inside kind of the rule book of like Dungeon Crawl Classics, and what was kind of what transposed from like Gamma World and all your experience that you wanted to bring?
The mixer for me was everything I imprinted on, which is I occasionally mentor younger writers and some artists. And one of my things when you're brand new, like, hey, this is something I want to do. I want to bust in and write for games. And I'm talking to you. I will remind people that what you have, Nathan, this goes for you too. What you have that no one else on the planet has
Yeah.
is your singular and unique silo of media that you've consumed that you can mix it, use as a big pot and mix and stir and pull out pieces to create your own new stuff. My laundry list is AD&D, first edition Gam World. It was very funky and bizarre. And as we've seen over the past 30 years or so, there have been a lot of different role-playing genres that have adapted the D20 engine, but the D20 engine isn't a match for all of them.
No.
Superheroes are tricky. Horror is tricky. Maybe that's why Call of Cthulhu is a percentile system. Who knows? But uh, post-apocalyptic Gamma World is just D&D with ray guns and mutants and mutations. So it's a very simple hop and a skip over. And when I fell in love with Dungeon Crawl Classics, that's all I had to do for MCC. I mean, I certainly brought a lot of my, I'm a comic book fiend from the
Yeah.
70s on. I brought a lot of my Commandy, Last Boy on Earth. I'll tell people I was inspired by Commandy, Last Boy on Earth, but there's not one for one. It's not the same setting. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
Joseph Goodman himself, what he did with Dungeon Crawl Classics was brilliant. So my job was just to not screw it up. Does that make sense? The game mechanics,
Yeah.
the high risk, high reward. You might die. My very first DM in college, had us roll two characters up, and I'm like, why do I have to roll it two? And he's like, you'll find out. You know, that kind of here's four level zeros to take to a funnel, and instead of spending all weekend composing, your fancy Pathfinder character's background, why
Yeah.
not just play it out at the table? Because the guy who squeaks through will have a fantastic story, and you'll create it. Very attractive to my style of playing.
No, when I first started, it was, and I've said this multiple times, it was actually a jinx to write a backstory because usually they ended up dying within the first session or two, and then you wasted all that energy. I like to now have like a concept of like it's this character plus this character meshed together, and then I try to flesh him out as he goes, and if he dies, he dies, but I like kind of smashing things together and making its own, oh, recipe.
Well, that's almost my favorite thing in gaming, and that's not everybody's cup of tea either. Is the genre mash is where it's at, man. That's how Gary Gygax did it. That's how James Ward did it, and it's worked out pretty good so far.
My latest character that I'm playing in my friend's campaign is like a Dean Winchester from Supernatural meets Geralt from Witcher and all that, and it's a fighter Eldritch Knight, and I'm having a lot of fun with it actually, just because you get to do those two things, and they have very similar personalities, but very different ones at the same time.
That's great. That's how you do it, man. And then
Yeah.
for the rest, there's other people with different play style preferences. God love them. If you're having fun, if you're a GM and your players keep coming back, you're doing it right. Now, if that works out to be Pathfinder or whatever else
Yeah.
there is, that's fine. I'm very aware of the style I prefer.
And as I'm talking to a lot more kind of OSR personalities and modern personalities, that's kind of what I'm finding is everyone's not having that kind of in quotations over the years addition war as there always was, but it's more just this is what I prefer. If you guys prefer this, that's great. But and that's a good system too if you're having fun with it. I just prefer this.
Yeah, and I don't buy into the edition war argument
No.
anyway to begin with. The what do I want to say? The playstyle preferences are like what kind of movies do you like or what music
Hmm.
do you prefer? That tends to be pretty hardwired in people's heads, and some people even have multiple preferences. You know, I AD&D and DCC are very different systems. I mean, in one, spellcasting works like a physics degree, you know, like science, and the other, anything could happen. You could end up with tentacle arms if you screw the spell roll up. You know, I could play both of those and be happy, but and with the right group and my buddies, I could probably, you know, I've played 5e and it was fun.
It's fun. The combats drag a little bit much for me. That's why I'm kind of looking more at OSR titles to kind of get a little more streamlined in that. But I do kind of like the superhero feel every so often. And if you know how to adjust it right, you can make it just as deadly. It just takes a little tinkering.
Or rules that will break a game session or break an adventure. Is that good or bad?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on
Mm-hmm.
what you like.
When you were designing like Mutant Crawl Classics, I imagine just like any sort of creative, there was self doubt and questions of, am I doing this or this is a hot pile of trash? And then you kind of get over that hump and keep pushing yourself. Was there any moment where you're like, okay, this game's actually going to work or this version of it's going to work?
Well, when we started playtesting it with my old group, the original Mutant Murder Hobos, it was only 35 pages of rules. There were barely any rules. So we sort of just organically grew it and I backfilled as we went along for about the first year or so. But I mean, sure, I've got the little demon version of me that sits on my shoulder and just goes crap, crap, crap. That's crap. That's complete crap. You know, you're crap. I don't know a creative who doesn't have
No.
some of that, or imposter syndrome, or whatever. But I think the people that are productive are the ones that just can be like Captain Kirk in Star Trek 3. What's the word, Admiral? The word is no. We are, however, going anyway.
For folks that know like the post apocalypse, and mostly I kind of contacted you just because like the season 2 of Fallout's coming out, and I figured it'd be a good bump to show that there's post apocalypse settings beyond Modifius's 2D20 system. What's Mutant Crawl Classics? What does it deliver compared to like more modern systems might overlook?
Well, the mechanics are modern in
Yeah.
that it's both DCC and all subsequent sister sibling systems
Mm-hmm.
are just stripped down 3.5 with new rules tacked on. So I would consider that modern and not old fashioned. It's not, you know, is it ascending or descending armor class? You know, it's completely modern in every way in that way. But what's the elevator pitch for MCC? Why should anyone try it?
Yeah.
It's it's got its own particular flavor. Joe did a very interesting thing in DCC in that he didn't give it a hard setting, and Goodman Games had a setting prior to that for the adventure modules that were for 3.5. I
Yeah.
forget the name of it, but like the White Rock, Castle White Rock, and all that.
Mm.
There's the Aerith, I think is the name of the setting.
Yeah.
There was a setting. Joe didn't do that. He gave it sort of a central spine of a flavor of a setting and then allowed for individual GMs to custom tailor it. So if it didn't broke, don't fix it. I intimidate it that same way. That said, it's a much sunnier apocalypse because it's 10,000 years from now. You know, they're all different flavors of the post-apocalypse. You got your, you know, matrix overcast skies and mechanical squid monsters, and everybody's in a trench coat and a gas mask. I just think that's depressing. There, Black Sun. There's very nihilistic settings and
Yeah.
planes, not Planescape. What's the Dark Sun was the
Dark Side.
D&D setting.
Yeah.
People love that. I like to follow the direction Gary Gygax set for us that also Joseph did when he read all the Appendix N literature and make it pulpy. So Mutant Crawl Classics is in a hothouse jungle on the planet 10,000 years after a 30th century Vancian super science society fell. So there's not, you know, M16s and pig crap fueled automobiles. Uh, it's very pulpy. It's jungle, hothouse jungles, mile high trees,
Yeah.
radioactive deserts, and the biggest expansion of life on the planet since the Cambrian explosion. Except everything walks and talks and uses tools now.
If a TTRPGer though like that wanted to kind of explore Mutant Crawl Classics after watching like the Fallout TV series, what's one thing that would kind of feel familiar for them out of that system if they're coming as a Fallout fan as well?
I mean, you could. I mean, any decent qualified GM could take the rule set and run a Fallout version of the game, I think they'd be better served, as you said, would just go get the Fallout
Yeah.
RPG, which I've not read, so I can't speak to it. But the setting wise, Fallout's interesting, and what the two systems have in common is they're both dealing with a retro future, which is
Yeah.
very in style now. I might have been a little ahead with trying to make MCC that way because I was dealing with artists that contributed to the book, and I'm like, it's like the ruins should look like ruins of the Jetsons,
Yeah.
not New York City.
Yeah. Thinking about that, I 100% agree with that. Actually, I hadn't thought about it like that, honestly.
And
But
Fallout's got a little of that, even though I think what their apocalypse happened in the 2272 or something like that. But
yes,
with the altered history, it's what makes it retro future. And design wise, that's groovy as all get out.
but there's also like a lot of deep sci-fi prints in Mutant Crawl Classics. Is there like any one Easter egg that you guys kind of put in there that no one ever catches?
I almost can't not Easter egg. I mean, the
Same.
magnetic mutation, uh, up at the top, the manifestation, some of those are just like anybody who reads comics would go, oh, well, that's Magneto, or something. I occasionally had some art direction, light art direction where I would tell Stefan Pogue, okay, this patron AI should look like Galactus, except not Galactus, just a big celestial looking guy, or give me something that's a Lost in Space robot, but it can't be the Lost in Space robot.
Was it Robbie? I believe is this Lost in Space robot, if I remember right. It's been a while.
That's Forbidden Planet, but
Oh, for
designed by the same guy and very
okay.
similar.
It's been a hot minute. I did like the Netflix TV series that came on for a couple seasons. They did a pretty good adaptation, I guess.
I'm very old, so Lost in Space was like first grade for me.
Yeah, and then Netflix came out with like a new version of it for a couple seasons, and then there was that movie in the late '90s that was real good.
Ooh, yeah, it was a pretty stinky movie, but they tried.
Yeah, I liked it as a kid, and then when you grow older, you kind of realize, okay, maybe this wasn't the best, but as a kid, this wasn't too bad. There's a lot of cartoons and TV shows that you rewatch, like, what was I thinking? But it's still inspired at the same time.
Goals and armies of mutants and mutant apes. A big influence on me was the Ralph Bakshi movie from 1977, which was high school for me. The movie Wizards, because it's a
Oh,
mishmash of elves fighting mutants and the bad guy digs up some old Nazi propaganda films and uses them to inspire his troops. It's just it's of its time in terms of animation quality, but it's a wonderful movie.
I was gonna say, like, even when I was flipping through the books, I had the DCC RPG, and I also have the mutant one as well. That I was like, the one that caught my eyes. There's a couple of like little Easter eggs, even for like Lovecraftian. Like, there's one where you grow all the tentacles and all that sort of stuff. It was just kind of cool, especially in like that type of setting where you don't think of like a Lovecraftian type influence, but he still reaches in.
It's it's an interesting setting. I mean, it's not my favorite genre for just like no reason. That you're freed creatively a lot of ways when you jump into the post-apocalypse or any futuristic sci-fi where you can take some of the problems that are current today don't impact that genre at all.
No, Terry Brooks with the Shannara Chronicles proved that when he led to this fantasy setting that turned out to be post-apocalypse.
Well, I'm thinking like everybody was having such a conniption over some book Watsy published where it was like a wheelchair dungeon. I don't want to say more about it because I didn't read it, but
Yeah.
everybody seemed like they were having some kind of fit about it, and that would be nothing in a post-apocalypse. You've got character has no legs and has a hover chair instead. You wouldn't even think twice.
No, I was asked on was it? I was asked a couple times to comment on that. And I'm like, it's just thing you can
What
add
color
it.
is your skin
Yeah, it's
30,000 years from now? Whatever color you want it to be, baby.
it's just a thing you can add into your game. You don't have to have it in your game. It's if you don't want it, don't use it.
Oh, right, right, right. I mean, I wish that I could say that's a fully modern thing, but the truth is the fans and gamers were just as crazy 30 or 40 years ago. They just have the internet to get on now. But yeah, if it upsets you, don't read it. If you don't like it, don't play it. It's no
Well,
big deal.
if you don't like that rule, throw it out. I
When I
mean,
see a movie I don't like, I just stop watching it.
and there's been plenty. But I won't go get into the decline of movies lately.
Last season of Doctor Who sucked. I'm out. Well, they'll make more seasons and there'll be a new guy and a new
Hmm.
showrunner. It's been around for 60 years. It's been around almost as long as I have.
That was actually one of my questions. Was I noticed that you're a Whovian? Who is your favorite Doctor out of the I guess 15 now?
Well, classic, obviously, Tom Baker. That's
Uh,
everybody's favorite. And plus, I have a hypothesis that we like most what we imprint on first.
yeah,
Like I was telling you about the games I played, and he was my first Doctor. But of the modern ones, I love them all, but I really like Peter Capaldi because just he's old and grouchy like I am now.
mine growing up because my dad introduced it to me at a very young age was Sylvester McCoy. That was my first Doctor, so that was my favorite one.
And he's a good one too.
Yeah, he's a good one, even though, you kind of go back and like, okay, the writing ain't the best, but I think it's more the effects because there's a lot of good writing in some episodes and really stinkers in other ones. But out of the modern ones, yeah, it's Peter, and I also really kind of liked Matt right before that.
Well, there hasn't been a modern Doctor that I disliked, that I
True.
actively disliked, or wasn't my cup of tea. Quote. There have been the writing has come and go. I
Mm.
think I think she got screwed.
No, and
Not to stir anything up, but the
no,
writing was just not there, and I expected better from Russell T Davis.
I actually, for some reason, stirred up a lot of arguments online when like Jodie Whittaker took over and the new guy took over, and I'm just like, listen, these guys are actually really good doctors. It's just this writing is just kind of slacking.
Yeah, I've been reading up on what exactly happened with that whole Disney deal, and it was just a convolution of circumstances caused a problem, and that happens, and people forget it sometimes.
I mean, that's what happened to Colin Baker back in the Sixth Doctor. Is I've heard the only reason why he lasted only a year and a half is because his ex was dating the head of BBC or something like that, and get him out of here.
Yeah, Lou Grade had it out for him.
Yeah, and yeah, and then so his giant
I'm sorry,
multicolored coat
Sir Lou
left.
Grade.
Yeah.
Doctor Who is the best science fiction show ever created, bar none, and I'll fight any 10 of you that say different. And
uh,
that doesn't mean I don't love Star Trek or Star Wars. I do. It's just okay. You gotta give the credit where the credit's due.
my co-host Lang Mini Studio that's usually on there when we first started talking, and he knew I was a giant Whovian, and then he made like a backhanded comment about Doctor Who, and I just kind of turned to him like, "What do you got against Doctor Who?" And he's like, "Nothing. I've never watched it. I just know that would set you off." I'm like, "Oh, okay. We'll get it. We'll get along then." This episode's been brought to you by. So every GM here starts small when building a campaign, right? A tavern, a village, a few NPCs. But what if your players want something more without you feeling overwhelmed? That's where Centurion 3D Studios steps in. Their new miniature village set lets you start small, but it's over 30 build-out options. Infinite ways to grow your world. Centurion 3D Studios is for the GMs that want to start small, but go big for their players. Alright, fellow hermits, Heimdall has just dropped their new dice line, and they come in a unique LED display box that makes them look like they're pulled straight out of a mythical ancient Viking vault. And the dice themselves, they're runic. Full Thark inspired font on the faces, but the wild part is they've got this iridescent finish that literally changes when the light hits them. It's like your dice are actually filled with magic. If you want to show off the dice in a totally new way, grab one of these 5 sets, if not all of them. There's something out of the 9 realms themselves.
I was thinking about how I aggravate Tim when you were talking about earlier. Tim has a temper, and we just stopped. For years, we drove to Gary Con and Gamehole Con together. So that's like a 7-hour car ride. And occasionally, once in a while, as good friends do, we get into it with each other over
Yeah.
something. And his temper is ferocious. And it's funny when the guns are aimed at somebody else, but when they turn on me, I learned a trick where be sitting in the passenger seat, and I'll just say the words, Dave Arneson, and the guns turn suddenly, and he goes off on Dave.
I mean, if you know how to get that red cape up and matador him away off you, that's an art.
We're that level of friends, once in a
Yeah,
while. Screw you, Wampler. Screw you twice as hard, Cask.
yeah.
I
I'm
don't
the
know if
same.
anybody else's friends that has a friend like that, but I like it.
Well, my co-host and me are pretty close like that, and I'll give him hell, and he'll give me hell, or we'll tease each other, and it's all sorts of fun, especially when you can just like poke at each other, and no one's feelings are gonna get hurt because you're saying it from a respectful but friendly place.
Right, right. You love each other or whatever.
And you get that feeling when you guys were on a, I can't remember how to pronounce it. I think it's Tankar's Tavern like a
Yeah.
year or so ago, and then he just randomly pops in. You guys start ribbing each other, and it's just like, yeah, you can tell these two are best friends.
I hope it comes across that way. Tim's gotten mad. I'm no longer allowed to tell certain convention stories.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, when he did have a reputation when he first got back into it of being kind of bloody, so
He's mellowed out. I bet
especially
if
after
you
the
ask,
cancer. That's what he said in our interviews. He mellowed out after the cancer a lot.
that's very true.
But he's like been a big influence on you. Is there something that he's taught you like when that goes into your one on one of like game design?
For sure. I mean, I met Tim when I was all of about 19. He had moved to Cincinnati from up north to start Adventure Gaming Magazine, and I was just a little nobody coming in his office with my writing buddy to, please print our cartoons and articles. And he doesn't really remember a lot because I was just one of many that were aggravating. But when we re-took up with each other and became friends was about, I'm thinking 15 years ago or so now. We just both blindly walked into an author event at a game store. I was doing a Marvin the Mage web comic at the time, and that's why I got invited. And they had Tim come in, and I'm just like, hey, he was a much bigger deal to me than I. He barely remembered me until I reminded him of some convention stuff. Uh, and but his work with Dragon Magazine, Scientific Barbarian, the zine I do, is
Yeah,
solidly premised on that first run of Dragon he worked on. The and I come from a publishing background. Like Tim was the ad director for his college newspaper. I was the ad director and the editor in chief later. Uh, we have similar sensibilities, kind of no
yeah.
bullshit, no nonsense, similar tempers. Although I've been working on mine.
That's the whole reason I love this podcasting thing. Is I did 4 years of journalism and I did 2 years of radio and TV, and I'm very glad I did not get into mainstream journalism like I'd originally planned, considering 20 years later. But I'm fully enjoying this and being able to
That's
use that.
interesting. That's where I started out. I used to make a living being a stringer for the local papers when I was in college.
Well, yeah, and I did a lot of photography for a couple of the local papers, and then I only had a couple of things, but a lot of it was kind of the high school paper, and then uh, a couple of college like overnight class or not overnight, but night classes, and then radio and TV for 2 years in high school, and that was always just a passion for me. And then I started doing this, and brought it to like the TTRPG thing that was already my passion, and just like ignited my ADHD focus to hyper focus on this.
There's a sort of you got me thinking about it now. What did I learn from Tim and why do I like Tim? And I think it's the sort of polymathness of Tim. Uh, because you're reminding me as you and I share that we both have some kind of journalism background. Everybody that I'm good friends with, my good friends today are all people like that. Because my two biggest personal friends in gaming are probably Tim Jolly Blackburn and Tom Tullis, and all three come from some kind of eclectic, crazy background. Where if you did your full resume, it looks like you're some kind of pathological liar. Because I just like something, I will plumb the depths of it until I understand it and master it to whatever level, and then I'm on to the next thing.
Like I said, it's ADHD focus, and as I'm starting to reach out to more of the community and talk to them, like especially with like Stefani Picorni, when I was talking to him, he's very ADHD, and you can see why he's so highly creative, and you can see his brains in three different places.
I don't know for well or ill, I just look for the commonalities. And Stephanon and I, the common link is we both went to art school,
Yeah,
Kovacs too. So I like Stefan's fine art that I've caught glimpses of almost more than I do his gaming products.
Yeah, me and him bonded a little bit after our like I had him on the podcast, and then my mom was like a college art teacher, and she died unfortunately a couple years back, but I have her color pencil drawings basically throughout my house. So I grew up in a very artistic household. So
There
me
you
and
go.
him bonded over that, and he is an amazingly nice person.
We're not pals, but we get along great.
No,
I
no,
always know when I hope to come back. I haven't been in a couple of years, but we used to always go down to North Texas Con, me and Tim. We have to fly down, and I could tell when my room was on the same floor as Stefan's because as soon as you start hearing the AC/DC or the Black Sabbath booming down the hall, he's got like some weapons grade, radio box going.
you're talking about Marvin the Mage though as well, just a bit ago. How did like Marvin start out? Like I wasn't not actually able to find too much about like his origin story online at least, or how he like came to be.
I don't think Marvin the Mage, in terms of the overall gaming community, was ever any kind of big thing. It certainly wasn't until the last 10 years or so. He was just a comic that I
Yeah,
created in 1979. And if you see me today, I didn't look like this in 1979. So
yeah,
that's the cautionary tale is be careful when you design a cartoon character as a kid because you might grow into them. Because now I've got the white hair and the, you know, porcupine beard. But yeah, it was just a comic, and there were a couple of tiny little single panel Marvin the Mage cartoons that got published in Adventure Gaming, and then that was it. It was just my little personal deal. And about 2010, 2008, when I was looking to get back into gaming, that's how I decided to do it. I'm like, I'll just revive this as a web comic and relaunch it, and that'll be my foot in the door.
and then other than obviously growing to look a little bit like your character, is there anything about Marvin the Mage that because everybody any creative kind of puts a little bit of themselves in anything that they make? Is there anything that you guys kind of share?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a fictionalized version of me in that he's, very sarcastic. I mean, he's got little character quirks I don't have. Like he doesn't want to go to the dungeon. He just wants to gamble and
Yeah,
get the gold after they've gone to the trouble of bringing it out of the dungeon for him. That's all Marvin. But just the cranky old magic user. That's my favorite character to play.
yeah.
And some of the other characters in the strip are based on people I game, just similar to Jolly Blackburn and Knights at Dinner Table. They're all in some way pieces of them are based on people I gamed with.
You also started Scientific Barbarian when you came back in as well, right? If I do remember, if I did see my research right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Subsequent to MCC coming out, the here's the secret origin of Scientific Barbarian because to me it's pretty funny.
yeah,
I run the MCC RPG Facebook page, and I don't know, years ago somebody was on there fishing. They were doing that. Okay, Hive Mind, we're going to do an MCC zine. We need a name, and I went ahead and went nuts like I do, and did a whole little black and white mocked up cover called Scientific Barbarian, with some like Stephen Pogart I lifted from
yeah.
somewhere and said, "Here you go. Here's your idea." And they're like, "Nah," and I'm like, oh, "That's a good name. I'm going to keep that."
It's a
And
very pulp as well, which just kind of fits right into that system. Like
right, so
I have a giant like clip art book of like pulp magazines over in my library, and it fits right in there. Like it would be on page 40 of that 200-page book.
oh, well, thank you. You're very
Yeah,
kind. Um, and the initial idea was just to do a satire of Scientific American magazine, and a satire and a parody. The rule is you could only do it once.
yeah,
Uh, so I had some minor concerns and hoped I just duck under the radar. And then the next thing I know, a gentleman got a hold of me and introduced himself as the art director of Scientific American magazine. I'm like, okay, here it comes. And I knew this day was going to come. I shouldn't even be talking about this stuff. I don't know. This is. I don't think I've discussed this anywhere, but it was around the issue 2 of
yeah,
Scientific Barbarian. This guy gets a hold of me, and I knew that was I was at risk, so I had already designed a complete different logo
yeah.
and look feel for an alternative version of how the covers would look, just in case.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, it's time for me to suck it up and take my medicine. The guy gets a hold of me, and he turned out, unknown to me, had backed it, and they were fans. So no problem, and I lucked out.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, thanks for your support. Please don't let the lawyers know.
I mean, if that's the way it is, and was he like, did he kind of own the IP behind it, or did he just, he's one of those people that backed you without letting anyone else know?
He just didn't think it was a big deal, and apparently it's not a big deal. And
I mean, as long as you're not like directly like plagiarizing him. I mean, there's lots of things that share different looks, so
well, it's an homage
yeah,
to their look feel design from 40 years ago.
yeah,
So, I don't know. Sometimes I'm a more talented mimic than I am a
yeah.
creator.
With those, I think
Like
it,
drawing Jolly Blackburns. I do cover art for Knights at Dinner Table, and that's just me copying Jolly's characters. Obviously, that's the job.
yeah. But with Scientific Barbarian, I think there's 6 or 7 issues now, five or six maybe.
You should, I, if I could ask your indulgence, I'd just like to say out loud, yes, I've had, it's very difficult to talk about. I've had some catastrophic health issues that
Yeah,
have made it for 2 years now very difficult for me to work. And I'm
yeah,
finally gotten some treatment and they're figuring out what's wrong and I'm coming back, but I'm not even back to full-time work now. So what happened with the most recent Kickstarter, which is issue number 6, that Kickstarter was 2 years ago. The book's about
yeah.
98% done, and I am nowhere near finishing it. I'm just starting to heal up, and job one is, get back to regular work and pay my own bills, and then I'll do it. But I promise everyone, on my
No,
deathbed, I will. If I drop dead, my brother would swoop in and finish it. It's going to deliver. You're going to
no.
get your number
Oh,
six.
I don't think anyone's doubting that. I mean, you don't have the reputation of anyone that's going to take the money and run, as Steve Miller would put it.
I hope so, and I appreciate it to the extent it's true. But there's all, and when you have hundreds of backers, there's always upset people, and they're right to be upset.
Yeah,
They have a legitimate grief because they pledged for something that said it was going to deliver a year and a
yeah.
half ago, and it hasn't delivered yet.
And
That's
there's
I take full responsibility for that and apologize. It was not my intent, but I'm not skipping out with your money. I promise.
yeah, and there's unfortunately there's people on Kickstarters and all that that do that sort of stuff, and it's just kind of sad that it's ruined it for the honest people, or given the honest, or given that type of feel for like someone like you that's honest and hardworking and will deliver. It's just you've had complications.
Well, life's just complicated, Nathan,
Hmm.
and different people are different people. Some people, uh, you never know the full. What I'm saying is, you never know the full story behind something. In the early days of DCC, there's a guy whose name I can't think of right now, but he did little boxes, little special boxes you could store your game stuff in, and then
Hmm.
a couple of adventures. And he was a great guy, and I loved him. And then, like he and his wife's baby died, and they went in tailspins, and they couldn't fulfill something. Stuff like that happens. Then there's actual crooks,
Yeah.
and then me personally, when I back something, I understand I've made an investment in possible or probable, but the project or product, but it's not an online store, and the due diligence is all on me. If I, uh, next Kickstarter, if I do another Kickstarter after I fulfill this one, which I won't do until I fulfill this one, and I don't get big numbers because people are butthurt over this, I deserve that.
But like with the at least the first 5 issues that are done, you're finishing the six. Like, what does Scientific Barbarian like? What does it solve with that creative itch type thing? Was more what I was originally getting towards, where we kind of side
Actually,
tangented.
I mean, a long time ago, I've got the cover for 7. I already
Yeah,
bought the art a long
yeah.
time ago. But it's a good question. Scientific Barbarian is not MCC exclusive, although it naturally started out that way since I'm behind it. But it's just post-apocalyptic supplemental game material.
Hmm.
Uh, with that narrow focus, but otherwise like Dragon Magazine, including there's comics in the back, like Knights at Dinner Table. There's fiction every issue where I've gone out and found, post-apoc fiction somewhere. And the desire, the itch it scratches for me is there was a limit to how many pages could be in an MCC book, and there are all kinds of things that are not in that book. And so this is my way of expanding on that. You know,
Is a kind of a supplement. I mean, if we're sticking to TTRPG terms.
Yeah, yeah, which I don't think is any revolutionary idea. That's all the Dragon magazine was like, here's some new classes, here's some new spells. Well, here's some new mutations,
Yeah.
here's some new races.
No, I have like 30 or 40 Dragon magazines that I can from the 80s that I can flip through and get ideas from, and You know, there's usually one or two good nuggets on each magazine that I can borrow from, and sometimes there's one down the line that I just overlooked.
There's an old thing in advertising called show don't tell. So
Yeah.
my hypothesis is by presenting uh, a variable spread of supplemental material, you're not just it's different than doing a gazetteer.
Hmm.
Gazetteer is here's a setting, use it. This kind of approach in the zine or the old gaming magazines is you want to do it yourself. Here's how you do it yourself. Start with this.
I only have one more question. I know your time's a little bit limited, but one,
Only
uh,
till the caffeine wears off, then I'm
yes,
done.
you're talking about like fostering and working with younger designers or giving them pointers and all that sort of stuff. What's one creative truth that you would share with a young designer or writer that's getting into the space that even maybe your younger self didn't realize when you first started?
Wow, I've got a whole list that I have written down somewhere, and absolutely none of them are coming into my head at this moment. The encouraging things are to find your passion and hang on to it because you will need that passion to sustain you through all the valleys and humps you have to cross because there is no way around putting your 10,000 hours in. Um, Often, and as you say, I was like this when I was very young too. People want to leap straight to the prize, and you can't get to the prize that way. You have to
Mm.
learn what you're doing and go. You have to make your mistakes, and if you're not making mistakes, by the way, you aren't learning anything new.
Nope.
But
I've
the passion will sustain you through all that. I had a passion for Game World. I had a passion for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and that sustained me through, 130,000 some odd words.
no. I tell that
I
pe
didn't do it for the money. No one does.
no, and I tell that to people all the time. If the only way you can really succeed is through failures, because that's the best lessons you learn. Unfortunately, is figuring out what you did wrong or who you mistrusted or where you put the wrong energy into.
It's a very good idea to also tie yourself off to a couple of three either friendships or creative relationships or both at the same time from people who are already succeeding at what you want to do. So they can teach you, or you can even just watch them and figure out what it is. I want to do this revolutionary thing. Well, it's very hard to be truly revolutionary. Find somebody who's done something like that or similar to it and go research how they succeeded or failed with it. Keep yourself out of waters and vetted mentors or peer level relationships work just as well, are always to your benefit as long as you listen to them. I have my personal Tim Kask is one of them.
Yeah.
Tom Tullis is one of them for
Yeah.
different things. I have my little thing of people that sometimes I'm calling them up or Zoom calling them like this and going, here's what I think. Good idea, bad idea. Because the ideas, for me personally, I wake up with 20 every morning. It's getting through all that noise to the good one, right?
First off, that's an amazing idea with having three or four people to kind of feedback on that. I haven't heard it worded like that. That's actually kind of mind blowing because I might have to take you up on that sort of idea, figure out who those people are, even. And then, secondly, Stephen King actually said something very similar of don't write down all your ideas, only keep the ones that stick in your head for a certain amount of time because that's telling you that's a good idea that sticks in your head, and then write that one down.
The important thing, I could put it in much more practical terms, because what are you going to have? You're going to have game designers, writers, and artists,
Mm-hmm.
or blends of all three. Um, Everybody needs an editor.
Mm-hmm.
I was roommates with a TSR alumni who I will not name, who was raging at me once that from this point forward, no editor is ever going to alter a word that I write, and I won't write anything for anybody who's going to put it under editing. Well, fine. But, maybe Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe didn't need editors, or William Blake, but the rest of us do. And the rest of us need art directors. And I've actually discovered through the years I'm a better art director than an artist. I'm a better editor than I am a writer because my talents have their limits too. So it's good to trust somebody and listen to them. But I could tell you from art school, it's about developing an ear to listen for what you need to hear, but you have to be able to screen out all the bullshit.
And
right?
sometimes it's so hard, especially now, just because you have the internet and everybody's screaming at each other.
If you go on Facebook and say, okay, Hive Mind, what do you think about this? You're going to get hundreds of uninformed opinions that just create so much fog you can't even see what the question was anymore. Two or three vetted people that you've personally vetted. This is who I want to listen to, and then listen to them.
And yeah, I mean, because they've gone through those trenches, they've gone through those mistakes. They've made those mistakes, as I've just mentioned, and they know what they're saying. And more than likely, if they are a mentor type figure, they're gonna try and help you not repeat the mistakes they've already made.
I mean, I'm Tim is my best friend on the planet, and except for my brother, I love him the most of 7 or 8 billion people. Uh, and I'm very lucky to have him around, and very fortunate that we've been friends long enough that what I'm about to describe goes both ways. But I can call Tim up and just say, "Hey, I need the human thesaurus for a second. I'm stuck for a word." Stupid stuff like that,
Yeah,
all the way to here's an issue, here's a PDF. Read over this and tell me what you think. And
I've
and Tim will not hold back. So that's good.
yeah, and you need those friends that will hold you accountable, and if it sucks, they'll tell you it sucks, and they won't sugarcoat it. And I have a couple of people like that in my life where I'll go to them. I'm like, listen, I need to know whether this sucks or not, and just be actually just blunt with me because that's going to be the most productive thing that you're going to do.
And if you're on the other side, you can do that without being a bastard. I do it all
Yeah,
the time.
you can very easily be constructive about it, not demeaning. You don't have to like tear the person apart and tell them. You can tell them what sucks without telling them that they suck.
Yeah, I grew up with a father who was like that, and in a world that was much more like that, and it's unnecessary. That
No,
that you know, it's like just going to a game convention and behaving yourself and being kind and gracious and decent to people. I don't find that any big difficulty. Some people do.
with that though, I think that's about it. Are you going to any major cons this year, like Gary Con or Dragon Con or?
I am not. My health has forced me off the road for the time being. I'm hoping to maybe be recovered enough to go to North Texas Con in June, but right now I'm off the road,
Nah.
and we'll see. Tim and I were road trip buddies for the longest time, but
Hmm.
he's much older. He's older again than I am, and we're just kind of tired.
No, and that's understandable. I mean, the man is like 70, and I think he does have either a scooter or whatever to get around when he's in those type of areas. So I mean, his legs probably don't work the best, I imagine.
Well, I mean, uh, I think what we're all trying to do is keep. At least in my camp, we're focused on getting the next generation in here because that's where it comes from. I love some people don't like kids at their table. I freaking love it because
No,
they show up with no baggage whatsoever and
no, I
fresh ideas and out of the box and energy and enthusiasm, and they're the future, not a
that
bunch of old, you know, tin
that's
cans like us.
last year for because it was like D&D's 50th. I was running the Tomb of Horrors at a couple of different conventions. That was my funnest experience out of like the three times I ran it. Was I had like two kids there and they ran through the traps and they survived somehow. Don't know, but they fell through half of them and
A
had
few
their
years
gender
ago,
bended and had all their gear stolen.
well, that'll happen.
Yeah.
I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago at Total Con in Massachusetts, I ran an MCC version of Tomb of Horrors.
Hmm.
So everybody knew what they were going to get into, right? And I'm just hot dogging it. So I've got Gary's old original AD&D module, and I'm just flipping armor classes and reskinning as I go. But it was a table that mostly was either old curmudgeons like me, a couple of 30 somethings, and one teeny tiny little 14-year-old girl, and they got all the way down to the Efreet, and she freaking figured out what to do and saved the entire party. Was MVP of the entire session at 14, playing an AD&D adventure set in Mutant Crawl Classics of all freaking things. That's the best.
The last time I ran the Two of Horrors, it was actually with she had, I'm not quite sure what her age was. She had to be anywhere from 10 to 13, but she's with her dad, and I asked him, I'm like, has she played much D&D, or is, what's her experience? And he goes, oh, this is like her 6th session. I'm like, oh, you're one of those dads. Okay. I'm like, and I explained to him, don't be upset if your character dies, because it isn't so much whether you survive, it's talking about how your character died in this if you fail.
If you're having fun, you're doing it right.
Exactly. Is there any sort of projects that you got going other than trying to finish Scientific Barbarian once your health gets back on track?
The health part is sadly what I'm focused on right now. But yeah, I've got an entire Kickstarter that is not RPG. I mean, it's RPG related, but it's not a game or a book. It's minis. I've got a Kickstarter ready to go, and it has been for about a year. I mean, the sculpts are all done, but I can't do it till I get this book delivered.
Yeah.
So that'll be next.
Alrighty. I think that's about it. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Nathan. I enjoyed this a lot.
Hey, tabletop gamers. Thank you for watching this episode of the Hermit's Homebrew. We come out with new episodes every Wednesday. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends as we continue to level up and grow.